This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest that has had a very positive impact within the fantasy football community. How could she not have a positive impact being Bob Harris's best friend at all? You've seen her with the Sports Affiliation, and she's been a big part of the Women of Fantasy Football movement. It's Wendi Earley. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kevin. I'm so excited.
I'm glad to have you on here. Like I said, you've done a lot in this community. I think that people that have a positive impact in this community are really special. It's kind of something I always wanted to do.
I've definitely been called special before.
I love it. No, that's great. I think it's great that you're on here. Can you tell listeners that might not be familiar with what you are doing, some of the things you've done with Sports Affiliation, as well as what you're doing with Women in Fantasy Football?
Oh, absolutely. So my name is Wendi Earley. In case nobody's following me yet, it's at Wendi Earley, just the way it's spelled here. My role with the Sports Affiliation, I'm a team member. I was welcomed on board by JC and Iggy when I met them at the expo last year. And they were like, hey, Greg Kellogg wanted to maybe put a podcast together with myself and another woman. Her name is Carla. And I was like, okay, I've never done anything like that before, but sure, I'll try it. And it was one of the best things that I've ever done, Kevin. I had a blast. I ended up just resigning this past week. We did 40 episodes together, though. The weekly commitment, as you know, it's pretty hard, and not everybody can do it. And I was struggling a little bit, and I was just more like also wanted to expand a little bit. I wanted to do a little bit more with Women of Fantasy Football. So I'm kind of, I'm not leaving TSA. They're my friends. Carla has become a sister to me. I'm not going anywhere, but I am going to be working with Women of Fantasy Football a little bit more.
I love it. And you said TSA, great people, some of the best people in the community. And your show, yes, been wildly successful. I'm always seeing highlights of this and that, and people have just been really receptive to it, which is always fun to see. And again,
well, and that's right. And what we were trying to do is bring people onto the show to showcase them and how they got to where they're at, because I'm not an analyst. I don't pretend to play one on TV either. It's not what I do. I like to consider myself more like the Pied Piper. It's like I'm going to have everybody, hey, come follow me. We're going to do cool things, and we do. I really did not. I just felt that it wasn't fair to Carla. It wasn't fair to TSA. It wasn't fair to our guests coming on, the people that come every week and watch, if I was not in it 100%. And I just couldn't do it. And I knew I couldn't do it. It was a hard decision. It really was. But the show's going to go on, and that's the important thing. Carla loves doing this, and she has roped in Miss Hope Myers. I'm sure you know who Hope is.
Yep.
She is going to be the new co-host, so make sure that you guys check them out. They will be on Wednesday nights at 8:30 Eastern time, regular time, the same way that we were on. I will be there to support them 100%, and I'm super excited for them.
So awesome. Well, obviously you can't find yourself to this community if you don't have some passion for sports. For you, where did it all begin? Were you a big sports fan? Did you growing up?
Oh yeah.
Sports?
I did. I'm not sure if you know, but I'm 6 feet tall.
Yes.
So guess what? Basketball and volleyball.
There you go.
So that's what I did. So I did. I've been a sports fan my whole life. My mom played softball. My dad coached her team. We were at the softball fields every day. I played softball through middle school, but then once I, got into high school, and they were just like, wow, she needs to be playing basketball. So I started doing that. I didn't really have a choice, but it was great. I'll never forget that. It was just like, hey, show up. Hey, she's on the team because she's 6 feet tall. You know what? I was pretty good though, Kevin. It's not that I wasn't a slacker or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've just always been a sports fan. I'm from Indiana. So I'm a big Larry Bird fan.
Oh, nice.
I just, oh yeah, he had a restaurant. We used to go to his restaurant sometimes in Terre Haute, and my cousin dated him in college, and
That's awesome.
we just has like this big history with Larry Bird, and so that's kind of where I started. My big teams back in the day. I would love the Lakers, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. That was what was plastered all over my walls when I was growing up.
Nice, nice. How about on the football side?
Oh gosh, Dan Marino. Once Dan Marino happened, I was a senior in high school. We're
Yeah.
talking my age, okay? Senior in high school, and I started following the Dolphins because of Dan Marino. So, he was my guy. Now, I will say I live in Northwest Indiana, so I'm very close to Chicago. Probably less than 45 minutes or so to get to Soldier Field. So I do follow the Bears as well.
Okay, now that Dan Marino team was the only team to give the Bears a
I
loss in
know.
that
I
'85 season.
know. I'll never forget it. Now, the problem is he never got to win a Super Bowl. So I'm kind of sad about that. But you know what? He's a legend anyways.
For
So,
sure. Yeah, I'd say he's, top of the list when it comes to players that didn't,
yeah,
across
I
all
know.
sports that
I don't
that
know if he
didn't
wants
win a
to, I
championship.
don't know if he wants to be at the top of that list, but he is.
He
So.
is for sure. So, as a sports fan, what was the biggest loss you ever experienced? The heartbreaking game you ever watched?
And I thought about this, and it's not a game.
Okay.
I used to be a big NASCAR fan, and I was watching the Daytona 500 in 2001 when Dale Earnhardt crashed on the final lap of the race. It didn't
No.
seem like it was that bad when you saw it in real time, but
Yeah.
it started to get bad. Darrell Waltrip, he's crying because his brother just won the Daytona. Michael Waltrip never won a race, and then he wins the Daytona 500.
Well,
But all this stuff was going on, and I'm watching the interviews in Victory Lane with Michael. And he was celebrating his first win, and one of the crew members had to tell him
oh.
that Dale Earnhardt didn't make it. And to me, that was my biggest loss as a sports fan, because I was such a big NASCAR fan.
Well, yeah, I mean, it can't get any worse than that,
Yeah,
obviously.
it was
Yeah, that's
terrible.
another level for sure. How about your favorite moment in sports?
Oh, 2016 Chicago Cubs winning the World Series. Are you kidding
Okay.
me? I didn't even have to think twice about that. So I'm sitting in my chair watching the final game, and next to me was my Cubs hat. I have my recliner, I got a Cubs hat there. So I had matching Cubs hats with Papa Joe, and Papa Joe was my sister-in-law's dad, and we were very, very close. He was like 90, and I used to go over and watch all the Cubs games with him every single day, and he didn't get to see them win, but he was there with me because my
No.
matching hat was sitting
Yeah.
there watching the game with me the whole time. I cried like a baby. I
No,
cried like a baby when they won,
I
and
love that.
it's just something, I'll never forget.
That's a great one too because you got the whole, most of the nation, supporting that the
Yep.
Cubs winning just because they,
Yeah.
hadn't
And,
right
and
forever.
it's kind of been downhill since then,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but we have that win.
Yeah, yeah, you do. Yeah, I love those great sports moments because they're usually always tied to something
Yeah.
else, right? You get a connection like that, you got the hats with you. I
Yep.
think that's really special. So, what do you love most about fantasy football when you first found it? Like, was it what was it that hooked you?
you know, I want to win. Everybody wants to win, and you want to beat the guys. And because normally, let's face it, usually when you're a woman and you're playing fantasy football, 9 times out of 10, you're the only woman in your league. Okay. But not in the community that we have now. So I feel like I've found my people.
Yeah.
So fantasy for me started probably about 15 years ago. I did run my own home league for a while. I was in several leagues, but I would say things didn't really take off for me until the whole Twitter thing happened, Kevin.
Mm,
It just did, and I'm sure that's a pretty common story for a lot of content consumers, because that's what I
yeah.
considered myself, as a content consumer, and that's how I got to where I'm at.
Yeah, you find Twitter, you realize there's so many people out there with a
Yep.
shared passion, and you
Yep.
discover this whole community. And I mean, there's a lot of stories like that. I'm
Yep.
included in that I couldn't
Nice.
believe what I found when I discovered, this fantasy community. I love that.
I know. I
So
always tell everyone, I'm like, my friends aren't like me. I mean, my
yeah.
friends are cool, but they're not like me. I can't sit around and talk about, oh my God, I'm on the clock. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Nobody's like, what are you talking about? So I really do feel that, in this space, I have found my people.
I love that. Now, do you have one league that you consider like your main primary league?
I do. It's a home league. I don't run the league. And actually, I just got in it a couple years ago because, through time, home leagues, not all of them, because I know a lot of people that have been in them for like 30 years. But, most of the home leagues, people move or whatever, especially if you're doing a live draft. So 2 years ago, I got invited to a keeper league and I would have been taking over someone's team. And it was great. I had a fine time. But due to unforeseen circumstances, which was a family tragedy of the commissioner, there was only one draft day last season that everyone could make it. And I could not make it. And you know why I couldn't make it? Because the Fantasy Football Expo was that weekend.
There you go.
So I'm like, man, so they kicked me out.
You chose the community.
I did. And I would choose it over and over and over. And guess what? That league, they missed me. They knew I was competitive. I was in first place all year long, the first year that I played, and lost my first playoff game. I'm like, man, I was so mad. I'm like, I'll be back. Well, guess what? I'm back.
I love it.
They expanded it to 12 teams. There were 10 teams when we had to leave last year. A couple teams had to leave. So they're going back to 12. So he hit me up. He's like, hey, do you want a team back? I don't get a keeper or anything because, I didn't have a team. So yeah, I'm back in that one. And we have a live draft. Yeah, we have a live draft coming up. And again, the only woman in the league. But I don't care. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait.
I love it. That's great. Great story. So in your fantasy leagues, probably more like on the industry side, who are your biggest rivals?
Like, are you talking about when we're playing tournaments on Twitter usually?
Yeah, like if you're playing in some industry type leagues, who's the
Okay.
one person that you get the most joy when you beat?
Scott Frankel.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a
Yep.
good one.
You know what? First of all, Scott is one of the very first people that reached out to me for the charity tournaments. That guy's in every charity tournament imaginable with fantasy football.
Yeah.
Scott Frankel is in it. And he's amazing. Don't tell him I said that. Cut that part out. He just he is the one that kind of roped me in and
Nice.
kind of took me under his wing. I got to meet him at the expo last year, and we hung out. He's a terrible driver. No one get in the car with him. But he's the one because he gives me so much crap if we're together in a draft, and especially if we're right next to each other. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Scott Frankel for sure.
That's a good one. Yeah, he's in my Scott Fishbowl division right now.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
we'll see what we can do.
Did you go to the live draft?
Wow. Yeah, no, I meant to. I was going down to LA for the live draft, but I had plane issues like the rest of the country.
Oh no.
Couldn't get down there. Both Scott Fish and I were trying to get to LA,
No.
from Minnesota, and I'm from Seattle, and we both had issues, couldn't get down there. So we drafted. They drafted live, and we drafted, remotely live.
You have
with
to do
them.
what you
So it
have
was
to
good.
do. Yep.
Exactly. So playing fantasy, do you have any favorite settings, formats?
I used to, when I first started, I was like, I would listen to Howard Bender, and he kept saying best ball, best ball. I'm like, what the hell is best ball? I did not know what it was. So I'm like, all right, this was like 2 years ago. So I will play best ball tournaments unlimited. But as far as the format, I do like my super flex. I don't know why, and tight end premium, and that's an ode to Kelly Singh because she loves her tight ends. We all know this.
Yeah.
And so she has kind of rubbed off on me a little bit, and I will take that anytime from her. So I do like the tight end premium. I just kind of think it gives it a little bit of extra So yeah, I would say the Superflex tight end premium is probably one of my favorites.
Okay. So when it comes to discovering the community and Twitter, when was that? When was it? And what drew you there? Like, how do you find it?
You know, I'm gonna say it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I bought a car and I got free Sirius XM for 3 months. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I'm like looking around. I'm like, oh, hey, fantasy football stuff. Let's listen. So on my way in the mornings was Bob Harris and Mike Dempsey. On my way home was Howard Bender. So those were the two that I started listening to, and that was it for me, because they were so smart and so friendly. I even called the show sometimes. I didn't care. I'm like, I want to know these things. And Jeff Manns, Jeff Ratcliffe, those were all the people that when I first discovered Sirius XM, that's what drew me over, because they were like, hey, we're on Twitter, the Twitter machine. Howard always called it the Twitter machine. I had Twitter, but I never used it. I was still over on Facebook. Okay. I'm old, Kevin. So I ventured over to the Twitter space then, but I have to give a shout out, because I'm walking through Walmart one day doing my grocery shopping, just me doing my grocery shopping. And I get a private message from Lisa Ann. Okay. And I'm like, this is on Facebook. And I had actually watched some of her lives. I would comment, I would ask questions. She would do start sit questions all the time on Sunday mornings. And I'd always hop on there and she'd always answer the questions. So I'm walking through Walmart and my phone dings and I'm like, okay, she got hacked. There's no way that Lisa Ann is sending me a message, right? So I read it and she's like, hey, I had an opening come up in one of my leagues and I'm really trying to get more women involved. Would you like the spot? And I'm like, what? I'm like showing people, they're just walking by. Look, Lisa Ann, until they called security, but whatever. So I was just like amazed. I was like, I would love that spot. And she got me in and I've played in that league ever since. I think I'm going on year 4 with that one.
That's a great story. I love that.
Yep.
Now people do want to know, how did you become best friends with Bob Harris?
Oh, well, funny you should ask. I just had this connection with Bob. I was listening to him, obviously, like I said, on my way into work in the mornings, and I was listening to his life story, and so I hopped on his Twitter profile and I read his pinned tweet that was on there, and his health journey was strikingly similar to mine. I saw a picture of myself one day and I started crying about it because I'm like, oh my God, sometimes you don't realize, you've gained a little bit of weight. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm like, oh, I can hide my weight. Nobody notices. Well, guess what? Everybody noticed. But I was just like, he lost the weight, he got healthy, and all of these things happened to me as well. So I've lost almost 100 pounds. And I'm at 95. Okay, Kevin, I'm at 95. That last 5 pounds, I have given up everything in life that I love to eat. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care anymore. 5 pounds is not going to make or break me. Nobody's going to notice. So I just round up now. I just say I lost 100
I love
pounds. So one day, every Saturday morning, I would watch his YouTube video or his YouTube live. So I'm like, hi, Bob Harris. And he goes, hi, Wendi Earley. He said it to me like live on the air. And I'm like, oh my God, Bob Harris just talked to me. We're besties. We are besties. I mean, well, come to find out, Kevin, he says hi to anybody that says hi to him. But I didn't know that then. Okay. I thought, wow, I'm super important. So we just rolled with it. And he's such a good guy. Let me tell you something about Bob Harris. He's probably one of the best people on the planet. I mean, try and find somebody. I challenge you to try and find somebody that says a bad word about Bob Harris, because you just can't. So
You
you can't, he's just one of the, and I reached out to Lisa Ann because I need to know who my bestie's going to be. I'm like, hey, what do you think of this Bob Harris guy?
No.
And she's like, they're like this, okay? And she's like, yeah, he can be your bestie. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. So I'm playing in his FCE last year, his Fantasy Cares Eliminator. And so I don't know, we were in there doing something and we were in the chat, and Royal Slade hopped in and he's like, oh, hey, Wendy, that was so cool that you did this. Or I don't even remember what it was, to be honest, because all I remember was Bob Harris hopping in on this chat going, that's my bestie. I go, I told you. I'm like, I told you if I said it that enough times that it was going to come true. And it did.
I love that. That's the best.
It did.
So good, so good. So you said that you mentioned the Sports Affiliation guys at the expo. What was it about that group that made you really feel like, like that was home?
You know what? Iggy and JC, they're building this great community. They want to be inclusive. They wanted more women to be involved, and they kind of recruited me, in that way. And I was like, yeah. I mean, it's not that I'm anybody important. I was just a fan. Literally, I'm still just a fan. So but what they were building, they all have jobs and families, but they really care about this community and care about getting more people, more women, people that are on the side going, gosh, I don't think I can do this. You know what? You can do that. And they want you to come there, and they're going to give you that support. So I highly recommend, if you guys aren't following Iggy or JC or anybody over at TSA, make sure you hop over there and do that. Go subscribe to their channel and all that good stuff on YouTube, because they're putting out some good content.
I love it. Now, how's your experience been with fantasy, or with the Women of Fantasy Football Mock Girl Summer episode?
Oh
And,
my
what is the
gosh.
future? What does the future hold with WOF?
Oh my
WOFF?
goodness. Yeah. You know what? They've been so good to me. Not only Women of Fantasy Football, but the whole team at Club Fantasy FFL. They've been amazing to me. They sent me the combine in Indy, which was amazing. I live in Indiana, so I kind of threw it out there. I'm like, hey, if you're not going to use your media pass and you want somebody to do some content, go down there, represent. I would love to do that. And they were all about it. They're like, that would be fantastic. The kind of content I did, I don't know if that's what people like, but that's what I do. I had an amazing time, though. I know I keep saying that, but it really was an experience that I never thought that I would have. I had media credentials, which, let me tell you something, that is like the fast pass at Disneyland. I mean, literally, you show that, you can just go wherever you want. It's so nice, but I would say I got to interview players. I got to meet Laura Rutledge from ESPN. She's beautiful. She's nice. She sat there and talked to me for a few minutes. I was like, pinch myself. I'm like, what is happening here? But the highlight of the combine for me was sitting down with Stefania Bell and hearing her talk about working her way through the ranks. And, she just won the Matthew Berry Game Changer Award, and there's no one more deserving than Stefania Bell. She's nothing but class. I walked up to her. We had seen each other in one of the Unwind Zooms that Rachel Tootsie Pop runs. And so she knew what I looked like. It wasn't like a big surprise or anything, but I walked up to her. I'm like, oh, hi, Stefania. I'm Wendy. She's giving me a hug. And I'm like, I'm like this. And she's like 5 foot or 5'5". I'm 6 feet, but I'm intimidated. I am intimidated. And I'm like, is there any way maybe we could sit down? I know you're super busy, but maybe later on we could sit down and talk a little bit. Maybe let me ask you a couple questions for Women of Fantasy Football. She's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Here's my phone number. Just text me. Excuse me? I was like, Stefania Bell just gave me her phone number. What is happening? So she told me a time frame. She said, anytime after 12. And I'm like, okay, So I'm sitting there, and I was with a few of my friends had met me down there. A couple guys, Dustin Lukey was there. and David Heilman, I think his last name is, and Tristan. I had 3 guys there that they were so great to me. I was just like, you know what? You guys want to go to lunch? Go ahead and go to lunch. I'm not going anywhere until I talk to Stefania Bell. I'll sit here all day if I have to. I don't need to eat. I'm fine. And they're like, you know what, Wendi? We will stay here with you until she calls you, and then or you guys get together, and we'll take your stuff. We will meet you later. So it like 1 minute after she had told me to call her or text her, here I am. Hi, and she's like, hey, come on over. I'm over at Starbucks. I was doing like the Forrest Gump run out to go over to this, Starbucks. I'm like, I'm not missing this opportunity. So we sat down at Starbucks. People were coming up talking to her. She's so pleasant. She's just a friendly person. So we kind of went down the hallway, and, she let me sit there and interview her, and not in a hurry at all. She's like, gosh, I'm so sorry I'm talking so much. And I'm like, what? It was like a kid watching or listening to his grandfather's war stories or something. I mean, it was really, I was mesmerized, she was just so amazing. So, that was something that Women of Fantasy Football was able to gift me. In my opinion, that was a gift to be able to go do something like that. So, for me, working with them in the capacity that I'm able to would be helping to promote women content creators, graphic creators, fantasy football players, people that, that are maybe not necessarily want to do that themselves, or they're scared to, or they don't know where to start or whatever. They have the resources, and they are welcoming all women to come and play.
For sure. And the future's so bright for Women in Fantasy Football. Obviously, some amazing people involved there, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And with Stefania, I mean, she's as good as it gets. Just one of the sweetest people. I first met her in 2017 when I went to Bristol as part of the Commissioner of the Year contest. I got to spend the whole day out there with her and Matthew Berry and Field Yates, and it was just such an amazing experience. And I've seen her, on multiple occasions over the years. Saw her just earlier this week when she won that award, and she is always just the kindest person and always so supportive. And she's always thinking of others first. So Stefania Bell, she's as good as it gets, for sure. For sure. Now, what's been the most rewarding part of this experience for you in the fantasy community?
I would say that, being a part of the women's space is really important to me. Rachel, I had mentioned Tootsie Pop. She created that Unwind group, and we hang out once a month or so. It's like an open house style Zoom where you come and go as you please. And, it's just a safe place, for women to hang out. We don't even talk about football all the time, but unfortunately, I can't tell you what we talk about, because what happens in Unwind stays in Unwind. But that has been so rewarding for me, because I'm seeing these women coming out of their shells and showing up to these meetings and, or these events, whatever you want to call them. It's just a place for us to get together and talk, and these are people that, maybe they like Brittany Foxworth. She never did a podcast before in her life. And I'm like, hey, come on the Game Changers. We talked about it, during the Unwind Zoom. And she's like, okay, I'll give it a try. She had a great time, and now she's doing them all the time, So, great. I mean, that, it's just, to me, that's what the rewarding part is to help others.
Yeah, it's about those connections. It's about empowering people to step out of their shells and get uncomfortable to expand what they're doing. I think it's
a lot
amazing.
Of women out there, not just women, but I'm really trying to promote, because there are a lot of women out there that know a hell of a lot about fantasy football. Whether it's fantasy football or the graphics, all of your statistics, they all know that stuff too, Kevin.
Yeah. And the rumor is there's going to be a massive Unwind
man.
turnout for the expo. So they're taking over.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's going to be such a great time. That's definitely it's coming up so soon too.
It is. Now talk to me about your experience with the expo last year. Like what obviously it takes a little courage to go, right? Mm-hmm. What was your experience like, hearing about it, going, getting uncomfortable, and what was it like for you?
Well, you know what? It was 2 years ago. I was like, "You know what? I'm not ready to go to that." I had just kind of got my feet wet a little bit, started playing in the best ball that I had no idea what that was until then. So I'm like, "You know what? I'm ready." But then I started seeing all the pictures on Twitter, Kevin, and it was major FOMO. I'm like,
Yeah.
why did I not go? I'm like, I'm going next year. So I did. Best decision ever. If anybody is not sure about going to the expo, there's no question. You need to go to the expo. But when I pulled up there, like I'm walking up to the DoubleTree and I'm nervous as shit. I'm so nervous. Like my legs are literally shaking. I'm like, I'm not going to know anybody, and sometimes you don't because you just know their Twitter name and maybe that, their picture is not the same as who they really are.
Yeah.
So I was a little nervous, but I'm walking up and I hear my name. Like my first and last name, not just like, hey, Wendi, it was like Wendi Earley. And I'm like, who is this that knows my first and last name? You know who it was? It was Howard Bender. And
No.
I was like, I just immediately like felt this wave come over like, you know what? I do belong here. Howard knew me. We'd been on a Zoom. He let me come on his show for Battle of the Sexes. So we had talked and everything. So it's not like he'd never seen me before. But the point was, is he reached out to me, probably saw me shaking uncontrollably. I don't know. But after that, I felt like so at ease and that I did belong there. So, and this year I feel like I'm going to know so many more people.
Yeah.
So, you're never going to get that Virgin Expo experience twice. It just doesn't
Nope.
happen.
No.
But I feel that it's going to be different every year that you go. Because that's just the way it works. You meet new people, your circles kind of change a little bit. Sometimes you find more things in common with certain people. So I feel like it's never going to get old.
No.
These are people that you get to see once a year usually. I mean, you do have your handful that maybe you do see throughout the year, or, things like that. But I think that the biggest problem with the expo is you can't do everything.
True.
And clock management is out the window, gone. Forget it. Don't even think about it. The only thing you need to do is make sure you're where you committed to be, whether it's at, draft night out or, the flag football game or, whatever you've committed to, you need to make sure and be there. But other than that, forget about it because time means nothing there. You're not going to do it. So, but what Bob Long has done with the fantasy football and the expo and the community it's crazy. Like I don't know if he realizes the thousands. Honestly, Kevin, my life changed after the expo. It really did. I mean, I'm kind of in a different time of my life. I'm a little bit older than everybody in the community. Not everybody. Greg Kellogg is definitely older than I am, and so is Bob Harris.
There you go.
But I don't have small kids. I do work. I mean, I have a full-time job and stuff. But it's kind of one of those things that I have more time on my hands. So I feel like I need to be the one to help all these people.
Well, it's just so special because people come from every corner of the country. People probably come from outside of the country.
Oh, they
Every,
do. Yeah, for
every
sure.
walk of life. I mean, there's everybody's, coming together. Obviously, there's that shared passion for fantasy, but I think everybody would say that shared passion for the community is what it is. And like I said, it's people from all over the place, every walk of life coming together, and just enjoying it. It's like a great family reunion where everyone likes each other.
Yep.
And it gets better every
They
year.
actually like each other.
Yeah, for sure. But football does bring people together. So obviously we got a season coming up here.
I know, but you know what, Kevin?
What's that?
One of the best parts about the expo is no one is off limits. I don't care who you are. I mean, you've got Andy Behrens, you've got, Jim Coventry, Jeff Manns. I don't care who you are. You can walk up to anybody there and they're going to talk to you and it's going to be great.
Yep. Yeah, because they're most people there, I mean, everybody, I mean, they're thinking about, meeting people, right? So yeah, you're right. There's nobody that's untouchable. Everybody wants to connect. And guys like, I mean, Andy Behrens, he's one of the best people I've ever met.
I love
He's
the
just such
guy.
a good
I
person.
love the guy. He's great.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we all love football. So we got football season coming up. Are there any players that you're really excited to draft this year? Anybody that you would jump ADP for that you just have
Oh
to have
yeah.
on your fantasy team?
Yeah, I have a couple answers for that, but my real answer is going to be Roma Dunze. I
Okay.
am ride or die with the Bears and Caleb Williams this year. I just
Okay.
feel good about it. I love Rome, even though he's a rookie. I think that he's going to be a great weapon for Caleb. I wish I would have been able to go to training camp this year. I couldn't make it, but next year I definitely want to go. But yeah, Roma Dunze. Now, my crazy pick, and this was my last pick at the Scott Fish Bowl. Okay. The funny thing is it was a write-in. This guy didn't even have
Okay.
a tag.
Yeah.
Okay. But I fell in love at the combine. And I'm like, this guy, I want him to feel that he has a fan. I want him to be sitting on my bench. He's not going to play this year, but I want him to feel wanted and I want him to feel welcome. And Joe Milton Jr. is on
Okay.
my team. He's on my team. He's
I
on
mean,
my bench and he is going to stay there.
they might just bring him in for one play, just a Hail Mary, just throw it 100 yards.
And that would be all for me.
I love it. I love that you got a person that you got to support.
I
He's
do.
on your
Yep.
team. I love it. That's good. That's really good. Let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out some questions. You let me know what first comes to mind.
All right. I'm ready.
What do you enjoy most about what you're doing in the industry?
I am a co-commissioner for Battle of the Sexes Best Ball Tournament. It all started with a chat through the 1.08s, of course, Scott Fish Bowl. Do you guys notice a pattern? Everything kind of comes back to the Scott Fish Bowl with these
Yep.
charity events, which is great. So I'm in this 1.08 chat. And they wanted to start a dynasty league for charity, and they asked me to join. And Scott Frankel was one of them. You know, I got this group of guys; they're all great. Mr. Aladdin, Michael Salwin. He's the one that kind of reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, you know, we want to do this." Dynasty charity thing. You want to be in? I'm like, nah, I don't know much about Dynasty. And guess what? I do not like Dynasty. Dynasty is not for me. I'm sure that they have major regrets for having me in their league right now. I'm terrible at it. 0 stars, do not recommend. But Michael also said, hey, I also have this other idea that I want to run by you. And so he approached me with the idea for Battle of the Sexes. So we talked about the fact that most leagues have maybe 1 woman, possibly 2. So sometimes that can be intimidating for a woman and maybe they don't want to join. Or maybe they don't have a good experience. So we thought, well, you know what? If we pit 6 men against 6 women in each division, it's all equal. There's no advantage for anybody. And the best part was it was going to be a charity event. So what we ended up doing is we picked different charities to contribute to, which happens to be the Zero Prostate Cancer, Play Like a Girl. Play Like a Girl, their goal is to encourage and support girls in STEM and sports. So we wanted to donate to them. And then Living Beyond Breast Cancer. And that one came from Kelly Singh. I had reached out to her and I'm like, hey, we want to donate to a breast cancer organization. She had just gone through it, was going through it currently, and is still. She's great now. And she said, you know what? Rather than the Susan Komen, that's like a big general. She goes, this Living Beyond Breast Cancer, I just really support them. We said, okay, that's what we're going to do. So last year we had 90 men and 90 women. And we raised $5,750 to donate to those 3 charities from playing this silly game, So,
awesome.
I mean, how awesome. So Michael's a girl dad times 3, so this was like really important to him to level the playing field. So we made it best ball, low maintenance. We could get some of the big stars to play, which Stefania plays, of course. They all do, honestly. They all just jumped in. Howard had us on the show. But this year we have, I want to say it's 136 women and 136 men. So we've really raised the bar. We've already raised more than we did last year. So we'll be making our donation. Our drafts are just finishing up now. But I would say that is something that I'm super, super proud of.
I mean, that's a fantastic answer for sure. Now, can you name one person that you'd like to watch a game with, just to see their perspective on the game of football?
Oh boy. And that's such a hard question. And I don't know if there's a right answer, but mine's going to be Walter Payton.
Ooh.
I'm obsessed with Walter Payton. I loved him sweetness. How can you not be?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think there'll ever be another Walter Payton. And I love
He's right
his
there.
son. Yep. Yeah. See, exactly. Jarrett Payton and Brittany Payton, the whole Payton family is just so involved with the community of Chicago, the city of Chicago and all the communities, and they do a lot there. And I resonate with the Payton family. So I kind of like to sit down with sweetness.
I love that. Now, can you name a couple people that you can't wait to meet in Canton at the expo that you haven't met before?
Yeah, there's so many, but I'm going to say Gina Noble, because Gina has really come on the scene this year and hopped in and done so much. Brittany Foxworth is another one. And I know these are women that I've met in the Unwind that I'm really looking forward to meeting. I also want to mention Sam Weiss. I don't know if you know Buy and Sell You is Sam Weiss. And Sniper Mel is not going, Melanie Harris, but I do want to call out those two people, Sam and Melanie, because last week I was having a mental health crisis with, everything was happening all at once. All of the drafts were starting for Battle of the Sexes. We had a few little issues here and there. All of my leagues that, how you always say, I'm not joining all those leagues next year. And then you join them all. I was timing out in my drafts. I've never done that before. I was losing my goddamn mind. And Sam noticed, Mel noticed, and they reached out to me. And whenever I was on the clock and whatever leagues I was in with them together, they were texting me, hey girl, it's time, and I could not have made it through last week without them. So I really want to give a shout out to them, and make sure that y'all take care of your mental health. If you need to step away, please do so.
Yeah, it's a great message for sure, because it's never worth getting too buried,
No.
and obviously, find a support system that can help. And if you got people like that around you,
Yep.
that's great to know you're in good hands. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of sports?
Nothing. No, I'm just kidding. You know what? I am big into music. I go to a lot of concerts. I go to a lot of live shows. I had 3 concerts just last week, like in 1 week. It was so crazy. I had Shinedown on Thursday, Limp Bizkit on Saturday, Hollywood Undead, Hellstorm on Sunday. My daughter and I, we go to most of the shows together. She actually, you know what? It's her birthday today. Her birthday is July 29th, so she
Happy
is turning.
birthday.
Yeah, she turned 26 today. So we go to a lot of shows together. We've seen Fall Out Boy 11 times.
Wow.
That is probably our favorite band. I started taking her when she was real young because that's who she loved, and we've met them twice. Very, very nice men. They're all great. They really are. We have a bunch of shows still coming up this summer. We have Rob Zombie. We're meeting Rob Zombie as well. We're going to meet Rob Zombie. I had no choice, Kevin. If I wanted to be able to sit with her and be with her, I had to get the meet and greet as well.
I love it.
Yeah, but you know what? My kid, she's a productive citizen of society. She's a nurse. She doesn't like me to talk about her a lot, so I'm not going to talk her about her name and all that stuff. But I'm super proud of her, and the way I look at it, music is so good for the soul. And if she wants to keep going to concerts with her mom, I'm going to go every time.
I love that. Now, who's your favorite band, musician, or artist of all time?
I can't even say that. I can tell you probably Foo Fighters is one of my top 5. Their shows never disappoint. Obviously, Fall Out Boy is up there, but we've seen so many. I'm going to see Korn this year.
I love it.
What? We go to Riot Fest in Chicago. It's a 3-day show. I don't do the 3 days anymore. I retired from that a long time ago. I'll go to one or two just for certain bands, and so we're going to go to that this year. So yeah, I would probably say Fall Out Boy is probably my number one. I don't care what anybody says.
I love it. No, it's great. How about an all-time favorite TV show?
Oh, I don't watch. You know what? I gotta say, Hard Knocks. Like I
Okay.
know it's a series,
Yeah.
but I don't watch like a whole lot of. I watch smut TV. Okay, Kevin,
Yeah.
you're gonna get all the. I watch them all.
What is your favorite? What's your favorite smut television show?
Like it's called Love After Lockup or Love
Okay.
During.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
bunch of
Yeah.
them.
There's a lot of them.
If you're gonna date a prisoner, that's the show to watch. Okay,
I love it.
Love After Lockup, Life Before Lockup, Love After During. I mean, it's just I can't help it. If I've got a couple extra minutes, that's what I'm doing.
There
So
you go.
yeah,
I love it. Guilty pleasures. Guilty pleasures.
it
Now,
is.
do you have a favorite movie or a favorite sports movie?
Well, my favorite movie, and again, don't care what anybody says, Top Gun. It's
Okay.
always been my favorite movie. You have to understand, like, that's when I was growing up. Like, I was in high school, when that movie was coming out. And it was like, oh, Tom Cruise riding on the motorcycle. And, it's just always been my favorite movie.
That's good.
But as far as sports movies, oh my God, there's so many. I love Field of Dreams. I feel like there's so many, if you build it, they will come. I mean, there's so many things that happened in that movie that I just loved. But I also love the Rocky series, and I
Mhm.
think again that's kind of from because when I went to the theater and saw Rocky. I was 10 years old, Kevin. My mom and
Nice.
dad took me to the theater to see Rocky.
That's awesome.
And then when Rocky 4, I think, came out, the one with Dolph Lundgren, he was in that
Yeah.
one. I was working at the movie theater, letting
Nice.
my friends in for free to go see the Rocky movie. So, those are some of my favorites.
That's a good one. How about the best vacation you've ever been on? And what's a bucket list vacation item you have or a destination you have?
Yep, yep. And I'm simple, okay? I don't even have a passport, so I'm not going to say, "Oh, I want to go to Italy and I want to go drink wine in the vineyards." No, you know what I'm doing? My dream vacation and dream bucket list item are two in one, and they're happening in April. I've never been to Las Vegas. Okay. And that's something I've always wanted to do. I'm not a very good gambler, so I've tried to, stay away from Las Vegas. But there's more than gambling in Las Vegas because you know what's in Las Vegas? My other bucket list item, WrestleMania. So
Nice.
WrestleMania in Las Vegas in April. We're
That's awesome.
going. Yeah, my
That's
daughter and I are going to go together because she watches wrestling. She knows more about wrestling than I do. So her and I are going to go together to WrestleMania.
You
So
are quite a duo.
I know it's crazy.
I think that's
But though
awesome.
I've always told her though, I'm not your friend. I'm your mom. But as you get older, and it's not that we're friends still, I'm still her mom, but we have more things in common and we can go do and enjoy things more together.
That's wonderful. I love it. I love it. So what are you most grateful for at this time?
Ugh. I'm going to say for my health and well-being because like I told you, last week was a crash and burn. I've never had that happen to me before. So I was very grateful that, I could pull myself out with the support system. But I will say I did have a breast cancer scare recently and everything is good. So, that it turned out okay. I did have to have surgery. So, when you have those things happen, you definitely feel more grateful for your health, especially as you're getting older, like I am. So, I had reached out to a couple women that had gone through that much worse than I had to go through, Kelly and Queen Roxanne. And they calmed me down. They're like, hey, get through it, see what's going on. And I did, and everything was fine. So, take care of yourselves, people, and take care of your mental health. That's what I'm most grateful for at this time.
And I love how that, you leaned on people from the
Yep,
fantasy community. Look at
I
that. I
did.
mean, it
I
all
did.
it's
I'm
all coming
telling you.
together. It's
Yep,
amazing. It's an amazing experience. What so many people have experienced within the fantasy community when it comes to personal relationships, professional relationships. It's special, and I think the
it is.
expo, like I said, like you've said, the expo is an amazing event. If you're concerned about going, if
Yeah,
you
don't be
go,
concerned.
you're going to want to go back the next year. And that says, no one doesn't want to go back the next year. It's such a special
I
event.
wanted to go back as I was driving away.
Exactly.
I'm like
Yeah.
leaving the expo going, when is the next expo?
There's always regrets. You leave and like, oh, I wish I would have talked. Oh, I wish. Oh,
Yep.
it's so. Here we are. We're just days away. I love it. I love
I
it.
know, I know.
What advice do you have for people that want to get more involved in the fantasy community?
I'm hoping that more women will get involved, obviously. I know they're out there. If you love it, just do it. You've got the support system, you've got the resources, you've got the tools. Support your takes. Don't just put stuff out there that you're not sure of. I mean, do your research. And I think most people do that. So if you're wanting to do it, go for it. There's room for everyone at this table.
Absolutely. Now, Wendy? Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to share before we close things out?
The only thing I can think of is there's just a few people that made a big difference. And I know I've mentioned them throughout the show a little bit, but I really want to say Lisa Ann, Britt Flynn, Howard Bender and the Fantasy Alarm Crew,
Mhm.
Kelly Singh, Women of Fantasy Football, the TSA crew, and of course, my bestie, Bob Harris. Thank you guys for everything that you've done for me.
It's an amazing list of people. I love that you found them, and I'm just happy that you're in this fantasy community because place is better with you. Your
Well,
positive
thank you.
presence is great. Can't wait to see you in Canton. Can you tell the listeners and viewers where to find you?
Yes, absolutely. So I am Wendi Earley, and it's WendiEarley. My name's got to be spelled crazy. What can I say? So you'll find me over on Twitter. I'm also a member of TSA, so make sure that you're following the Sports Affiliation. I have Mock Girl Summer on Thursdays, and you know what? We are not going to be on this Thursday, but normally we are on Thursday evenings with Julia Papworth, Kevin. She is amazing. She's been
Amazing.
so much fun. Yeah, she's great. We're going to probably do that a couple more weeks, maybe through August. Women of Fantasy Football is running their big their big raffles next month. That's really important. Everybody get involved with that. They give out scholarships to women that are young girls and people that are graduating, wanting to go into, whether it's broadcasting or, whatever. So they have the big raffle next month. So make sure you're following. Come and watch our show on Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. And I guess that's about where you'll find me.
I love it. That's wonderful. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. I cannot wait to see you in Canton.
I appreciate. Thank you for having me on, and I'll see you real soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.